Welcome to the PhyCap Podcast, where healthcare operators back to next wave of innovation. As our friends already know, Dr. Flosar and I co-founded this fund. We met at NETS in LA. We decided, because we're a little too crazy and too entrepreneurial, that we would start a venture capital fund for physicians, by physicians, and then really for all healthcare professionals, because we love our nurse practitioners, our PAs, our nurses, PTs, and everybody else. So our guests today are my co-founder, Dr. Paul Slosar, and one of the greatest GPs I've ever met, Dr. Vipul Kella. Guys, great to see you.
Pleasure, Dutch. I'll pay you later for that comment.
Yeah.
Appreciate
it. It's not nighttime. We haven't had any wine yet. We'll do that one at night. Dr. Slosar has been a spine surgeon for 28 years. I've now said this so many times. It's really kind of easy for me now. He's got just a world of experience. One of my truly good friends. I respect him immensely. And so we're going to spend the next 25 minutes having a conversation about venture capital. So yes, listen, you guys got involved all on your own. I'm kind of a crazy entrepreneur that's passionate about independent practice. And that's because I think that's how patients get the best outcomes for the best price. But when we start talking about PhyCap Fund, what was it that really intrigued you guys to say, yeah, okay, I'll put some money in and I'm going to dedicate some time, because this isn't a side hustle for us. This is real work. It takes meetings, times during the week where we have to talk to people and say, hey, give us your money, right? Your hard-earned capital, post-tax capital, and we're going to deploy it on your behalf at a part of your portfolio. What was it that really got you excited?
I think for me, most ideas in healthcare stem from some sort of pain, right? Some pain that you felt personally and deeply, whether you're a founder or in venture. So for me, like on the venture side, physicians make 80% of healthcare decisions on spend, but we're in less than 1% of VC funds. I got tired of over the years being at the very bottom of the line in terms of all innovation, right? Comes through founders, tech, hospital systems, and slowly trickles down to the frontline clinician. And the clinician has typically minimal to no say in how it's being developed, how it's being deployed, how you're getting paid for it, how is it going to fit into your workflow. And that just got to be very frustrating after a while, right? You're just not a part of this. And that's when I pivoted, because I wanted to be on the other side of it, where of course it's more exciting, but there's also an opportunity for physicians to really shape the way these products are developed, these companies are formed, how they're going to get into different markets. And I started to see the immense value that we could bring. I think that going through all of our education, I'm sure Paul agrees with me, is that you never really think that the physicians have a space or a voice in tech. And as I'm sure we'll talk about today, those days are over, right? These collaborations, clinician tech collaborations are central and are going to be the most important innovations, the most important venture funds are going to have some type of collaboration involved, because ultimately we're trying to derive outcomes and improve clinical outcomes for
It's
patients.
really amazing. When we started this, I looked high and low. I had about a year off between exits. And I was on a plane every week, all the time. And I talked to a bunch of people in San Francisco, and they were like, I lived in Burlingame for a time. Obviously, Dr. Slosar lived out there too. And I went and see my friends in the venture business. They were like, you want to do what with a bunch of docs? And I was like, yeah, it's a really good idea. Don't worry. You guys all told me all my ideas were bad, and look how that turned out. And so the interesting thing, though, is docs haven't been welcomed. And yet when we started our fund, docs, how many new funds have you heard about since we started ours that are really healthcare clinician centric? I see it popping up all over the place. I saw one today on LinkedIn. Have you seen others, or am I crazy?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And no, I think sometimes humans and physicians can get nervous when they see somebody else is doing something similar. In my perspective, I think that's reassuring, to be honest, because I believe that it means either, as Vipul mentioned, that there's been this sustained absence of physicians in the venture world, but also to the point he made earlier, The failures that have happened in some very large companies that are health tech driven, that had no physician engagement, have failed literally for hundreds of millions of dollars of funding. So I think that idea that there are now clinician driven venture capital or angel funds, this is not a completely new concept, as Vipul has pointed out in many times on our webinars and podcasts. But when you do talk to professional venture capitalists, they will use physicians or healthcare professionals as needed, per diem, per hour, to vet a company on the medical due diligence, but then they do not typically come back and nurture the company with that same sort of medical clinical support. So what drew me into this after we chatted for quite a while about it was the opportunity to put a network of organized physician collaborators together underneath our investments, directly underneath and engaged with them, where I think some of these funds are sort of syndicate and angel investors, sort of cloaked over sort of a venture layer, but our network of healthcare professionals, operators, supply chain, physicians, nurses, executives, we believe we represent a much more comprehensive aspect of the healthcare delivery paradigm, which is always where these companies break. That is where they are often underestimated, the enormous barrier to entry that healthcare companies have to get into our workflows and get into our clinical adoption.
I find it so fascinating because when I was out in San Francisco, living in Burlingame, I remember asking, well, we got our venture money from NEA, our first venture money. And then I talked to Kleiner Perkins, I talked to Greylock, founders, right? All these very large funds, which I deeply respect because I'm like, you guys have made the magic happen, not just in healthcare per se, but certainly in tech, right? And so my question has been for them is, how are you going to generate real returns in healthcare tech if physicians aren't involved? I mean, the case in point is Ford. The CEO used to get on Twitter, or X, as it's now called, and he would just say, I don't need docs. I don't need this. I got $400 million. And I remember having a private, like, kind of X exchange with him and saying, like, hey, man, I really think one of the best things you could do is find docs who understand the business you're in, and they can advise you $400 million. Like, you can pay him a couple shares, man. Like, you don't have to be greedy about it. It's not like there's not enough money. So why do you think, I mean, this is just a general question. Why do you think at large venture has kind of said, we don't really need you?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things, and I just wrote about this recently, was number one is that I think traditionally the model for venture was fast, unregulated scale, and that none of those things typically fit in with healthcare, right? And you can do that when it's very tech driven. In the early days of tech, that was your moat, right? And you can come in with this undifferentiated platform, this crazy, amazing UI or UX, and that would be enough to take you through into a high price round. That's gone now, right? Because everybody's got that tech is less differentiated. Everybody's got these platforms. Everybody's got UI, UX. Everybody's got some LLM. Everyone has that, right? What is the thing that's actually going to matter if everybody has that? It turns out the thing that matters is actually improving the care of patients. Who would have thought?
Right? Who would have thought?
So that means that if you're in healthcare, the traditional VC model, which still may work in other verticals, but that is not necessarily going to be the thing that wins the game. The thing that wins the game is, of course, having that tech backbone, and you do need tech founders and tech product people and CTOs. Of course, those are brilliant people. But what also is going to need is tech-enabled services, because what ultimately is going to make the difference in how do you bring the service component, how do you marry that together to change an outcome, whether it's a clinical outcome, an efficiency outcome, a patient experience outcome, whatever that is. Can you marry the two of those things? And time again, the companies that figure that out earlier and do it really, and as Paul said, not just with a token physician, where you're actually the physician is crucial into the strategy of the company, right? How are you going to actually, is this going to work on the front line? I know this can work because of X, Y, Z. Is this going to solve a pain? Is it going to increase my efficiency? Is it going to give me hours back of my time? All those things that we know deeply, we deeply experienced, for good or bad, have experienced over decades. Those types of questions can only be answered by clinicians. That's why I'm really bullish, really excited about when I talk about our PhyCap fund and the opportunity for venture is because this isn't just some nice thing to say, like, oh, clinicians and health and VC. It sounds interesting. It actually is meaningful. And the companies where you see right now that are doing amazing things, unicorn companies, Hinge Health, Sword, a Bridge, these are like clinician led or have a deep clinical problem that they're solving, and it's actually very tangible. And the proof is in how they're doing. So that's why I think that the healthcare VC game is a really interesting space, but it can't be on the backs of just tech alone.
Right. Doctor?
Yeah. And if you think about it, Dutch, I
No,
was just going
please.
to
That's what I
pick
was
up
going to
on what
ask you.
you had mentioned at the beginning.
Go ahead.
But so if you think about how venture has been involved in medical care, it's been,
That's right.
right. So, and that has been the traditional way because they had a very scripted way through. Either there was a 510K and the device had its specific pathway, or it was a higher priced item that would go through a full FDA approval, a PMA or IDE study. The workflow aspect of healthcare, which is fractured, which is the delivery of the care. We have great devices. We just can't get them to people efficiently. That has been basically Post-it notes, fax machines, and telephone calls. That's how we deliver healthcare until now. And this is where I see an opportunity for venture. The workflow solutions, the AI-driven software solutions, the clinical decision assist tools to bring reams of information into your fingertips without you having to go to the library or do a Google search, instantaneously. That did not exist before the last 5 to 7 years. And I believe that aspect of healthcare has now exploded and is now exposed to venture capital. And that is where we're aiming at Physicians Capital Fund. We'll do some device work, but traditionally venture capital and private equity was in the device space. It was where they could play. They didn't get into the workflow, the patient exchanges, the communication between offices. Those were traditional, basic office tools. And now we're finally at a point where this aspect of the healthcare delivery chain, in my opinion, is ripe for
It sounds
explosion.
though like you've kind of described the reason why an LP who's a doc or a clinician wants to be an LP. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I've said this on the podium because other people who are smarter and more experienced in this than me have said it, and I believe it to be true. This is a once in a generational opportunity to get involved here. This is the genesis of revamping some of the healthcare delivery opportunities in healthcare, the systems, the system management. And electronic medical records broke the ice and basically fell flat on their faces. It's the only time technology has been brought into an industry and made the industry worse or slower or more inefficient. But that has cracked open the door. Now, I believe the next wave of opportunity for people who have the courage and the insight and want to get involved, it is not on the next screw or rod or cage or wound care item. I believe there's so much opportunity in AI-driven clinical decision tools. Women's health is exploding. There are just disciplines that have been untapped, and venture is supposed to invest in things that have not yet taken root. We're not supposed to invest in iteratively better things that have a 2 or 3 times multiple. So I'm curious if Vipul agrees with why LP should be involved, but our clinical interest in getting these docs and healthcare professionals networked together with us is powerful, but we're also in this to make positive investments for our limited partners.
Dr. Kellen, I'd love your...
Yeah, I agree with everything Paul said. I think the things that I hear most commonly are a few things. One is that there's this sheer kind of boredom, apathy, hopelessness with physicians where they're doing the same thing over and over again. They don't feel like they're really making, beyond a single patient-to-patient encounter, physician-to-patient encounter, they're not making an impact on a different level. So there's a burning desire to get into something like this where they can have a seat at the table. So that's what these funds and will offer them the opportunity for. You're in healthcare, leverage everything, and the things that physicians that have been practicing for decades have is domain expertise. They have networks. They have great relationships. All of those things are your strategic weapons, and those can be leveraged in to help other companies, help other funds. That's what I try to explain to them is don't discount your clinical experience, that I'm not just a doc. It's like you're a physician that have made thousands or tens of thousands of clinical decisions and tens of thousands of different environments with different patient populations in different settings in different circumstances. How many product people, CTOs be able to answer those questions you have? And the answer is typically zero. And as Paul
Yep.
knows, how many people can tell you how an OR works at 2 a.m. in the morning after Thanksgiving? Not
There you
many,
go.
right? So that's the kind of stuff that we are, like, do not discount that. Those are the things that can make or break a product. And those
It
types
sounds
of
like
insights can,
it
yeah.
sounds like you're really making the case for why GPs and LPs that have a clinical background make companies faster, stronger, better, quicker. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I'm not saying that physicians are the be all and end all of great companies. But I do think that they are an integral part of them, and that hasn't been recognized before. Of course, you need great tech, but this cross collaboration, what we see in the blending, like this combination of great tech, great business experience, and great clinician, which I call the three-legged stool. Most companies don't really have all three. Maybe excel at two, but the ones that have been able to mix all three of those elements are the ones that end up really changing the game or creating a new category or just being wildly successful.
I love it.
Yeah. And to pick up on what Vipul just mentioned, I think as we're out there talking to people about this fund, we have a target audience of people who are frequently healthcare professionals who have an absence of day-to-day experience or formal education in venture capital or finance. They understand money. They're not stupid, but they haven't been formally trained in it. But they do get approached about investment opportunities. Everybody does. Somebody's founding a restaurant. Somebody's got this idea about a franchise. In medicine, you tend to get approached about opportunities for healthcare products. They tend to be technologies. Now, single check investing is what's commonly experienced by most of our physician colleagues or healthcare professionals, but it's risky. It's highly risky. And so the power of venture capital on a very basic level is the network. It's the opportunity to have people together who are investing in as a group. So when I explain the powerful dynamic of putting capital together in one fund and deploying 8 to 10 over 18 to 20 companies, that is powerful. Just statistically, it makes the likelihood of success better. Secondly, as Vipul pointed out, the idea of bringing people together, physicians and healthcare professionals often only network inside their hospitals or their clinics or whatever. The idea of bringing people across the discipline together, which is what we will be doing and are doing already at Physicians Capital, educating them, bringing in guest speakers, social events, educational opportunities, networking opportunities. I believe the group of people who come in as limited partners will spin off companies on their own.
Yeah.
I believe there will be additional things that are birthed out of this collaborative group that we bring together. So for the physicians, as Vipul mentioned, who are tired, who are burning out, who are thinking of what can I do in parallel to medicine or after I'm done delivering clinical care, this is a perfect opportunity to enter into the space, which I believe sincerely brings their expertise into the next realm of optimization. They can make an impact more than one patient at a time. You can make an impact on a company that has the opportunity to touch many patients.
One of the things I've been thinking about, I see probably 2, maybe 3 practices a week. Dr. Slosar and I were in Salt Lake last week together. That was an amazing experience, like large multi-specialty practice. And the thing that I get is there's a lot of pessimism among the independents. How is being an LP going to help them with the pessimism? Like, one of the things I keep thinking about is, why don't you guys do a special purpose vehicle? Why don't you invest in a fund like ours and get involved?
Yeah.
So just hear me out for a second. Most of them are practices distribute every month. It's like a nice glorified paycheck. There's no retained earnings. There's no company to sell. And that's, of course, your colleagues have a hard time with that. They're like, hey, we want to exit. And I'm like, okay, what do you have? And they're like, nothing. I have no balance sheet. I have a promise that I'll see patients tomorrow. What are you thinking about? You guys brought it up.
Yes.
I like to think this may be a solution for a little bit of pessimism and more optimism. And then can venture help that? Can we help that? Can our fund get people excited about medicine again?
Absolutely. I think just from what I tell people about, you explain two aspects of why you should come in as an LP. But coming in as an LP, you have the whole asset class itself, and traditionally has been one of the highest performing asset classes there is. So
Yeah.
just as somebody that's had decades in, that should be a certain part of your allocation. And I always tell physicians, do you have anything in your portfolio right now that you think can 10x over the next decade? You have your S&P, you have your NASDAQ, you have your QQQ, you have your VTSAX, whatever you have your bond allocation. Is there anything else that you think that you can get excited about? And typically the answer is no. Do you want that opportunity for a small allocation? And the answer is always, of course I do. Okay, so yes, the opportunity is there. Of course, there's risk. But what we're trying to do here is to create a specialist niche fund with domain experts who know the space unlike any other. So if you're going to try to de-risk an investment, what would you do? You'd make it smaller. You'd work with earlier stage companies where you can take a greater role, a greater piece of equity. You can de-risk the investment by having strategic LPs who actually have been in this space, have felt the pain. They can kill a deal in 2 seconds or give a green light to a deal. That's exactly what we're building here. But there's no guarantees in life. But we really feel that this is the secret sauce, the operating system that's going to help us differentiate ourselves from the generalist funds that are out there, which we're operating in the power law model, the spray and pray model, where I hope one of these hit. Of course, we're just coming to the battle a little bit more armed and a little bit more information with the same approach, but we also feel like we're better prepared for that.
Dr. Sloser, what are you thinking? You were
Yeah, I
enthused with
mean,
that answer.
I
I saw
have
the
had,
smile and I was like, oh, he likes this.
yeah, no, I think that the example that you used, I was there with you, and I ran our practice for 13 years. So I know how hard it is to make overhead, to cover your expenses, to try to keep doctors of different ages, different experiences, different personalities focused on the success of the practice. So I think that venture as a opportunity for a practice is a little harder than it is as an opportunity for the individual within the practice. So of a group of physicians, some are going to be interested, some are not. But that being said, for the ones that are interested, those are the people who do look at the opportunity of venture, as Vipul's very nicely described. And the idea of putting money to work in a space that you understand. I don't understand real estate like my neighbor who invests in REITs in real estate and does alternative investments in real estate. I don't understand private credit vehicles as well as I understand medicine. So if you lean into things that are within your area of interest, typically your brain is interested in science, those of us who are physicians. So the idea of leaning into things that are within your wheelhouse and carry with it an opportunity for return on investment and carry with it an opportunity to grow into a network of people who you would never meet on your own. That is for sure one of the other opportunities. Now, that to me gives people something to look forward to. They'll look forward to our pitches. We're going to try to hold pitches with founders every Monday night. We'll have education meetings. We'll have in-person meetings and bring together a dynamic group of investment-minded physicians and healthcare professionals. That, in my opinion, will differentiate us. Everyone who's looking in from the outside of what we're trying to put together feels the same way. They believe you all will differentiate yourselves in a way that we want to be investing alongside of you. We're getting more interest from outside venture funds to collaborate on investments and help with the due diligence than I ever imagined. So that's reassuring to me. And I believe it's reassuring to many of the people who are considering investing as
Look, doing these pods is really a powerful medium for us to get the message out, right? And I'm really enjoying them. I want to remind our audience that we're going to do these weekly. So if someone is joining us and they're like, and it's a doc and this message resonates with them, we got several events coming up. Can you guys just mention those, please?
Yeah, I'd love to say just first of all, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn anytime for anybody that would like to learn more about the fund and Paul as well. What we've started in the area is a series of happy hour type events. We held our first one a few weeks ago, very well attended with a whole host of interesting people in healthcare.
Our next event is June 26th in the DC area. We'll be focusing on sports and health tech. We should
I'll
have
be
some
there.
very interesting, excellent. We should have some
Yes.
interesting founders, athletes, and physicians in our roundtable discussion. It's going to be a great time. You're going to meet people that you've never had the chance, that you never would have met normally, as Paul said, and to form great connections. And also, of course, we're looking to identify people that want to join us on the mission as LPs as well. So we'll be doing those. The vision here is now based on the success of what's happening in the DC area, continue to do those quarterly. So look out for further additional invitations, but the next one's in June 26th.
Now, Dr. Schlosser, we got one coming up.
Well,
We
I
got
have
one
one.
coming up in Naples, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
I wanted to put out there. We're in the planning stages. June 11th is the date, though, in Naples,
Excellent.
Florida. And again, the purpose of these podcasts, of these conversations, of our dinners, of our webinars is education. And I mean that sincerely, that the way to most professionals' hearts is through education, teaching them in a safe and collegial environment about the opportunities. People can make their own decisions, but our job is to present objective data, information, and bring in people who can shed light on this area. We anticipate speaking about how AI will work in healthcare for people who might not be healthcare related. The event is open. And as Vipul pointed out, both he and myself are available. We're easy to find on LinkedIn, as is Dutch. Anybody who's interested in the fund. And also you can go to our website, PhyCap, like PHY, PhyCapFund.com. So our events are listed there. Our thesis is listed there. All the partners and their bios are listed there. And I think it will give people a much more concrete understanding of what we're in.
Just to wrap it up, we have webinars, we have live events, we have everybody's available by phone. Look, I think the journey here, it's what I want, right? Like, how do we create financially independent physicians, right? Whether they're our employed colleagues or they're in independent practice, I want physicians to be able to rally around and make healthcare affordable and accessible for everyone in the world. I think we have all the expertise, all the passion, all the understanding to do it. We just got to get around the same page. And I think this is certainly one fantastic way to do it. Dr. Kella, thank you for joining us today. Dr. Slosar, always love to hang out with you for a few minutes. And until next time, by the way, make sure that you go down in the show notes. That's got all of our events, our website, and everything else. All the information you might ever want is down there. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Dutch. A lot of fun.
Thank you.